Good morning and welcome to our iPros TV session. I'm David Lee, the Chief Operating Officer for iPros. Today we have a special guest from Aflac. Anthony Moreno, also known as Tony, is the MGA Sales Manager for Aflac. He will be reviewing core product benefits, process for growing your supplemental book of business, and answering all your questions. So without further ado, please welcome Tony Moreno.
Hello, this is fun. Welcome everybody. Thanks for chiming in. It's going to be a fun little hour. We'll see how much time we need for questions and answers. But this is going to be fun to explain kind of what Aflac does. Thanks for the intro, David. Thanks for the studio. This is actually a really cool studio. So I'm going to explain a little bit about what Aflac actually is and why a lot of people don't really know what we do, and why it's important to realize what we actually do. So we'll go through a little, share the screen here with some of the slides. There we go. And then feel free to chime in with any questions. But I'd like to start off with kind of acknowledging that most people don't actually know what Aflac does. So with health insurance, most everyone or every single person knows what health insurance is, right? They know that you should have it. They know that it's there, so you don't have to have a huge medical bill. But with Aflac, a lot of people don't know what we do. So I would normally open this up. I know this is, we'll get questions and answers later, but what people don't know is that Aflac is not health insurance, right? So we do not pay doctors. And even though everyone knows our duck, we have about 9 out of 10 people know our duck from commercials. We have one of the top name brands in the country, but most people, in fact, 9 out of 10 people don't know what we do. So 9 out of 10 people know our duck, but 9 out of 10 people don't know what we do. So what we do is pretty simple. We actually pay cash to people if you get hurt or sick, right? So we don't pay the hospital, we don't pay the doctors. And the reason for that, I like to break down a simple analogy or example. If someone has a broken leg, right? You go see a nurse, you go see a doctor, you get an x-ray, you have follow-up treatment, you have to have prescriptions. There's a lot of people in that situation who are actually making money off of this broken leg. No secret, right? The medical community makes money when someone has a broken leg or gets hurt or sick. But one person in that situation, the only person who's not making money, ironically, right, is the patient. So you have someone who has a broken leg, they have to go to the doctor, they might not work for a week, they have to take time out of their day, maybe time off work, and they have a copay, they're in pain, they don't want to go, cook dinner, they're going to get takeout food. And that's the one person who's not making money. And in our opinion, that's kind of the one person who should get some money because they need it during that time. So because we pay people, it makes it a lot easier on those times when you have to go to a doctor. So I hope that kind of makes sense as kind of the need for what we do, because most people just think of health insurance. So we can pay people cash, say we pay you a couple $100 if you have to go check out, a small injury, or $30,000 that we have if someone has a heart attack, stroke, cancer, a really bad injury. Then you can use that money, right, to pay for that. So that's kind of what we'll go into, is how you can simply use cash to pay for things if you're hurt or sick. So I think I can share my screen at this point. Okay. All right. So let me share screen. And full screen it. Okay. Is it showing up?
Yeah, but it's not full screen yet.
Not full screen? Control H.
Or go to view.
Okay.
And then go to read mode.
Got it. All right. Is that good?
Yep.
And we can go. Okay. All right. So Aflac, you've all seen the duck. We pay people cash, like I was saying. So we do not pay hospitals or doctors. We pay it to you, the person, if you get hurt or sick. I like to start with some stories. So Fortunately, I have the coverage for myself to get a little personal. So me and my family have the Aflac, some of the plans. Now, I haven't had to use it for a big catastrophic thing, like haven't had a heart attack, stroke, cancer, haven't had a really big hospitalization. But I have 3 kids. And so my 4-year-old, she was playing on the couch and fell off the couch, cut her lip on the coffee table. It wasn't terrible, but we wanted to have it checked out. We wanted to make sure she didn't need stitches. So my wife took her to the doctor, and we had a copay that was less than $30. My daughter's in pain, want to make sure we didn't need anything, and it was okay. The doctor said, you don't need stitches, it's okay. But because we took her in, right, we got a check for $160. That was pretty cool. And my wife and I have a little agreement where whichever parent takes the child in, that's the parent that gets to use the money. So my wife got to splurge on Amazon with with tea. She loves to drink tea, so she splurged on some really fancy tea. So she bought, all the fun tea she could imagine. That was what she did with the money. It was nice because it took time out of her day to go take in our daughter to the urgent care and get her checked out. Fortunately, she was fine. But Aflac pays us, and it would pay you if you had the coverage to go get an injury checked out. And that's kind of a big deal. And that leads me to this first slide here. Actually, that's going to be in the workplace. But we'll go to accident just to cover this one. So a lot of people have accidents. A lot of people don't go to the doctor if you have an accident. That's kind of become a problem. So say someone's doing yard work and they tweak their back. Say that person was me and that happened. Normally, I wouldn't take the time out of my day to go get it checked out. I just try and tough it out. But the reality is it's good to get it checked out and to make sure it doesn't get worse. So one of the biggest things I love about our product is that it pays you to give you the time to go get it checked out so that it doesn't get worse. So I hope that concept really makes sense, because that's one of my favorite parts about it. I hope no one has a critical illness or anything like that. But the reality is most people have an injury, at least once a year, where they twist their ankle. They get a cut when they're cooking. They get a burn. They, tweak their back like me, or their daughter falls and hits the coffee table. And a lot of people don't go to get it checked out. So a real simple thing to let people know is that Aflac even pays you for small things just to get it checked out, even if you end up being healthy. So I hope that registers and makes sense, because that really has proven to help things, before they get worse. So some stats here: 1 out of 8 people seek medical attention for an injury each year. So that's most everyone probably that you come in contact with has had something in the past year they should have gone to the doctor for. 23 or 29 million people make a trip to the ER for unintentional injuries. So again, big picture, people don't know they can get paid to go to a doctor and seek treatment. Now, going back a slide here, why Aflac in the workplace? We'll get into some of the other policies in a second, but bigger picture, Aflac has big group rates if it's done through a company. So our target market for Aflac is businesses. People can get it on their own. They can get the coverage on their own. It's usually more expensive. And it's better in a business for a couple reasons. Number one is you get a group discount. The other is that it helps the business attract and retain employees. So they have more benefits to offer, which is proven to be invaluable. So companies like Microsoft, SpaceX, Starbucks, they have phenomenal health benefits usually. Those same companies also offer Aflac, because if you have the platinum health insurance plan, even with that best coverage, if you have a broken leg, to use that example, the average out-of-pocket cost for a broken leg is still about $4,000. So that's why they also offer Aflac, because you can't go to the grocery store and swipe your health insurance card, right? You can't pay rent with your health insurance card. You need money when those things happen. So the big thing to communicate with businesses is that this can help with any health programs they already offer, right? It's a very simple thing that doesn't get in the way of anything they already offer. They don't have to change any of their current offerings at all. They just add this, and then employees can elect it or not. But at the group rate they get, people usually want to participate. So we'll go through these a little bit. Why Aflac for businesses? Attracting and retaining talent. So you can look into the studies if you want, but they always show that a big part of someone choosing a workplace is not just the money, is not just the compensation, but is also the benefits. It's actually free to offer Aflac. So that was a big shock to me when I started. There's no maintenance fee. There's no startup cost to offering Aflac for a business. There's literally no cost to offer Aflac for a business, but there are a lot of advantages to it. So getting great talent, retaining that talent is one of those advantages, even though it doesn't cost them anything. All right, navigating healthcare reform. So, in the past 10 or 15 years, there's been so many changes in healthcare, and that's why we now have over 50 million policyholders. I'll say that again because it's a lot, but 50 million policyholders in the world. So that they all think that Aflac is part of that solution for overcoming some of the obstacles and changes in healthcare reform. And it's all based on the idea, again, we pay people cash. Someone might ask, what can you do with that cash? You can do anything you want. It's not regulated. It's not a gift card. It's not a coupon. It's actual cash that we pay people. And there's a trust factor in there that basically says you're going through a hard time. You can use the money for whatever you want. So when I, get my money from Aflac, if I get injured or tweak my back, I usually, go to In-N-Out. I get a burger, make myself feel a little better, and then I can just save the rest of the money. But it's just cash. So that's why it's so universal and it's so applicable to everybody. So again, back to Aflac for businesses. They can administer the benefits all in one place. So with their HR, deductions are done, and then payment is remitted to Aflac, and there's still no maintenance fee. So it can all be done in-house. It makes it easy. We schedule enrollment dates. We can have the open enrollments coincide with health insurance to make it easier, on everybody. And then we educate the employees, whether it's through, a group meeting or individual consultations. So these are some of the advantages to offering it in the workplace. All right. And again, on the accident, some people ask, what is considered an accident? This is defined as a physical injury. So from the outside in. On this plan, we have several, but on this specific accident plan, this one only includes physical injury. So it does not include illness. So our plans kind of, they separate from each other because they fill a specific void, which makes the plans more affordable. For example, this accident plan, our number one plan, when it's offered through a group, it comes down to at a group rate of $1 per day. Sometimes it's even a little less than that, but it's about $1 per day for this plan. That's because it specifically covers injury. It doesn't have the risk of covering an illness, right? So we have different plans for different purposes, and it makes each plan more affordable. So it's kind of exciting, and that's why we have 5 or 6 different plans, so that each one can be very affordable, and it's kind of customized to someone's situation. So me, I have 3 kids. I'm definitely going to have the accident plan. Even before I had kids, I try to consider myself an athlete, and so whenever I have a twisted ankle, anything like that, it's worth my time to go get it checked out for myself. Big picture on this plan, we have had several incidences of someone in a car accident. Here in LA, we've had a lot of claims when someone's been in a car accident. And to kind of put the point forward of when this plan really comes into effect We had someone in a car accident in LA. It was raining, and they had to get hospitalized, for 3 weeks. And so they had an out of pocket, after being hospitalized for 3 weeks. They had health insurance. They had an out of pocket of about $6,000. So after the initial ER, after the hospitalization, they reached their max out of pocket, right, of about $6,000. Now they couldn't work still for 3 or 4 months after that. So they now were not making money, and their cost went up. So their income went down, right, but their actual expenses went up. So that was a big problem. They had this plan, and they thought it only paid $1,000 for a hospitalization, because that's one of the items in it. Is if someone's hospitalized for an accident, it pays you $1,000. So they just thought it was going to pay $1,000, and then they didn't know the rest of the policy that paid, for the ER visit, paid for X-rays, and then it paid for daily hospital confinement. It was, I think, like $250 per day. They had to get a ramp put into their house because they were given a wheelchair for that time, and they had to put in a ramp, and that paid, I think, $3,000 for a home modification benefit. These were all listed in the plan, and they didn't know. So they filed their claim, and it rang up like a hotel bill, right? So someone who couldn't work, not in great spirits because of all these factors, they ended up getting a check from Aflac for over $25,000. So that was a big game changer. They were unfortunately in that accident with a coworker. They worked at the same company, and the other coworker didn't have Aflac. They thought they had the same health insurance, and they did have the same health insurance, but not that they didn't both have Aflac. So one of them, unfortunately wasn't able to continue paying their rent. So they had to get help, move in with their parents for a little bit. And then the one who did have Aflac was able to pay off their out of pocket, their expense. And then they still had money to pay rent and even to save a little bit during that time and then to recover. So whether it's something small, like my daughter with a cut, or whether it's something larger, like a car accident where there's follow-up visits, it pays according to the severity of the injury. And money isn't everything, but if you can have a way to keep paying rent, to buy groceries without having to, borrow money, then that's really, really helpful, which is why people who have us generally are big advocates of it. All right. And should I stop for Q&A intermittently or just keep?
We don't have
going?
any questions at the moment.
No questions at the moment. Okay. All
We're
right.
paying attention so far, though. I can tell.
I'll trust you. Trust you. Okay. And then I'll keep going. All right. Critical illness. And before I get into that one, I just want to clarify that there's a distinction, between marketing to individuals. So with health insurance, a lot of that is done, I know, through just individuals, right? So individual people getting health insurance. The difference with Aflac, they can still get it, but again, our target is really businesses, and it's a fun target because businesses, if you sell a business owner on why to offer Aflac, and they have 20 employees, well, now you have 20 people. From a sales perspective, you have 20 people that you can sell to. You have 20 people who now can listen to this other product. So you kind of get more bang for your buck. And it's an easier sell with business owners because it's free. So they probably don't know that yet. From my experience, most businesses do not know that Aflac is actually free to offer. So if I were to get you excited about one thing, the benefits are awesome. But as far as implementing the benefits and getting an audience, learning how to market towards businesses is a phenomenal skill set. Because again, you sell one in-person health insurance, maybe hopefully you can get some referrals, but you sell one business owner or decision maker on why and how to offer Aflac, you now have access to the entire company year over year. Right? They have open enrollments where are the time where they advertise, and that's where people can make selections. So I would get you excited about, thinking and learning about how to market to businesses. because it is no cost to the business to offer it. That's what got me, a lot of new accounts when it's still to this day, it's a fun thing to talk about. People don't know that it's no cost to the business. So I hope that makes sense, because it's a unique thing to be able to offer a great benefit that does not cost the company anything. They usually don't know that.
Hopefully Juan is listening to this, our principal.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to offer Aflac. There's really no reason. I mean, one thing I'll say is Aflac is a very large company. We have a huge field force. So just as in any company that has people, some people may have had a good experience with an agent. Some people may have had a bad experience with an agent. But the cool thing with us is we get to distinguish ourselves as, we're going to be a quality agent. Maybe someone had a bad experience in the past with an agent, because we're just people. But when you go back to the actual product, that's when, we are head and shoulders above, in my opinion, every other supplemental carrier out there. And supplemental is the technical term for what we do. So we technically are supplemental, even though you don't actually have to have health insurance to get Aflac. You don't have to supplement it. You can actually have it on its own. It's obviously not health insurance. If you have a huge hospital bill, that $25,000 that guy got is nothing compared to his actual hospital bill that his health insurance covered. So just to clarify some of those. All right, so critical illness, everyone's favorite topic. So, heart attack, stroke, coma, a lot of the reasons people unfortunately, have to dip into their 401k is a critical illness, right? So instead of them having to dip into a 401k, how about offer a plan that pays them cash if they have one of these events happen? So this is a pretty simple plan. It pays initially for a diagnosis, typically like $7,500 if someone gets diagnosed with a heart attack, if they have an event. And then after that, depending on if there's follow-ups, hospital, confinement, on top of it, it pays more. So the idea, again, if you have a critical illness, if someone has a critical illness, their income usually goes down, but their bills go up. And that is the main gap that we try to fill. So health insurance, again, people, it's everyone I think should have health insurance, but at the end of the day, you can't pay your bills if you're not making as much money as you were making. And that's where we come in. So let's see the next here. Why critical illness? So heart attacks affect more than 900,000 people each year, and strokes affect about almost 800,000 people each year. Okay, so rising premiums, deductibles, all these things are a reason that the total out-of-pocket cost here for medical care can be, as you can see, around 40% higher under certain plans. So the idea, again, to offset some of the costs and some of the higher deductibles with our coverage. Okay, so here's some of the ones that are included in our popular plans: heart attack, stroke, coma, paralysis. And we do have a plan, this is called a lump sum plan, that pays $10,000 just right off the bat, and that's all encompassing. So no matter how much follow up there is, it just pays $10,000. We have other plans that start off, with, I said, $7,500, and then they add more on top of it as the treatments kind of accrue. So there's different types of this plan, but keeping it simple, they pay people if they have a critical illness. Any questions so far? No questions?
No question.
Okay. All right. I will keep going. Okay. So yeah, there's different types of plans. And okay, hospitalization. This is one that is been saving companies and employees a lot of money, actually, is our hospital plan. The reason is because, for example, if someone has a Kaiser plan that has a $500 deductible on it, and say the premium is $400 a month, if they make that deductible up to $1,500. They can save money on the premium, right? So you have a lower premium if you have a higher deductible. At the same time, you can bridge the gap with that deductible with an Aflac hospital plan that pays $1,000, right? And that plan is less than the amount that you save on your health insurance. So this is kind of a new concept for a lot of companies and people, but it shouldn't be, because any investment strategy, instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, right? It's good to diversify the risk. And with health insurance, people generally only know about health insurance. They only know, oh, let me see if I can tweak the deductible, if I can change to a HMO, but it's like, what about supplemental? Why are we not looking at both at the same time? Well, why not increase your deductible over here, save money, and then get a hospital plan with Aflac that pays you $1,000, and now you have like the exact same coverage for less money? It's just an innovative way of doing it. And the reality is, to hone on this for a second, is that Aflac is not mandatory, as you probably know, because you've never been mandated to get it. Car insurance, mandatory. Health insurance has been mandatory. People don't generally like to talk about insurance if it's not mandated. So people usually ask, once you go into the benefits and the company realizes it's no cost to offer, they generally are wondering, why have I not heard about this before? Well, the answer, I think, is that it's not mandatory. So companies are usually overwhelmed by mandatory regulations, right? Whether it's health insurance if they're over 50, whether it's the workers' comp, whether it's trainings that they have to do for certain things. So they generally don't have time to look into something if it's not mandatory, which is why when we get in the door, and we can talk about that maybe in the last half of this, is how to get in the door. But once we get in the door and explain it really doesn't cost anything and it helps you with the mandatory regulations, it's really a win-win for everybody. So I get excited about this hospital plan because it's an easy way to for people to honestly save money and have better investment when it comes to health coverage. So hope that makes sense. Some stats here.
Tony, a quick question. If someone, for example, right, Cover California has coverage, right, and to your example, chooses on a plan with a higher deductible, right, and to kind of save on the cost. On the average, what's the cost, right? If you're going to kind of use this as a gap, a stopgap, what's the average cost to the consumer or to the patient for this coverage?
Yeah, so this one, I would probably give you an average of about $35 a month.
Okay, that's a good perspective to understand. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and just like our other plans, there's customized levels in it. Like you could have this plan pay you $1,000, right, for a hospitalization. You could have it pay $2,000. You can even go up to $5,000, right? And so you can customize it. But I like the question because to put it in perspective, say the monthly premium for a health insurance plan is $450, and then you kick the deductible up $1,000. Say that $450 turns into $375, right? Well, then you add our hospital plan in for say $35. Now you're looking at $410 a month total instead of $450. If you do that on a mass scale, you can save companies a lot of money. And it's generally very well received because they've never heard of it before. Excuse me. On the other hand, just while we're on that topic, you can actually kick the deductible up even more if you want to really kind of play with it. Just to plant the seed, you kick that deductible up a few $1,000s, and you end up saving more and more money because Aflac does not have the risk of paying a hospital. So our risk is a lot less. We're just going to pay a person, whereas health insurance, they have to deal with paying hospitals. So there's a lot more to it. So the higher you kick up those deductibles or those out-of-pockets, as long as you're doing it, wisely, and you're not just leaving a gap, it can really be advantageous. So good question.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah. All right, so over 35 million people are admitted to hospitals. Wow, 118 million people in their emergency departments each year. So, I mean, the numbers are huge, but the idea is that people still only think of health insurance when it comes to protecting their financial health, and they don't know about supplemental as much because we're not mandatory. So that's and maybe again the next section here we can talk about how to actually get in the door with businesses. All right, go next here. Oh, and I was about to say, yeah, 30,000 is the average cost of a 3-day hospital stay. So that's about $10,000 a day. Yeah, these are big numbers. So that's why we have health insurance, and that's why it's smart to combine it with having Aflac as well. All right. So this has some examples here. I kind of went over the fact that it is customizable. You can choose, but the big picture again is it's not like a one size fits all. We have 6 or 7 plans total, and we consult with each person to see what they're eligible for and to see what might make sense. So here is the one that started it all. Aflac was started about 60 years ago. Because of a family, the man of the house who was the provider, he got cancer. And just because he got cancer, and they had great health insurance, but he was not able to work. And so this family lost their house. So to kind of really put the pain point in front of you, that's a really terrible situation, to lose your house and not be able to pay because you have an illness. But the reality is that idea really hasn't been, there's not a lot of ways to overcome this simple problem of if someone gets really, sick or injured, they can't pay their bills. So that touches home for me again, just whenever I talk about it, because so that person who lost their house, their neighbor was Mr. Amos, who was the founder of Aflac. So that's how the idea came. It basically said someone should not lose their house because they have an illness. There has to be a way to help with this. So that's why they created the cancer policy, which was the first plan from Aflac. So it specifically covers cancer. It specifically pays for cancer treatment because cancer treatment is the most expensive. We've all known people, but if you know about the full head to toe $100,000 or $10,000 procedure they do, it's that the finances on it are just terrible. So we can't do everything with giving them cash, but we can certainly help them pay rent or mortgage and groceries and things like that while they try and recover emotionally and physically from it. So this is the one that started it. And because of that, Aflac actually has a huge cancer center in Atlanta, where they help a lot of young kids that have been diagnosed with cancer. So the idea is to take something that's really terrible and have a little bit of a silver lining as much as we can. And a simple way to do it is to give people cash that they can use during that time. So into some details here. Unfortunately, the stats a lot of people don't like to really look at are pretty terrible. So in the United States, men have about a 1 in 2 lifetime risk of getting diagnosed with cancer. In the US, women, it's about 1 in 3. So even if we were to say overall, it's about 1 in 3 people get diagnosed with cancer, that's you don't hear the stories with a lot of people who get diagnosed with cancer. And from my experience with working with Aflac, if someone is diagnosed with cancer and they try and fight it, they don't often want to tell people, right? So we all know people who've had terrible experiences with it, but you don't really know the volume of it, because 1 in 3 is a staggering number, and we just don't know because people don't want to talk about it. But the reality is, if someone gets diagnosed, there's a whole lot that comes with that, beyond just finances. But we can at least help with the finances. So that's why it's I think it's an important policy for people to have. Okay. So that is that is kind of a list of our core plans that are offered through businesses. So accident, critical care, hospitalization, and cancer care. There are some policies that are available to people individually, right? So if they just, without being in a company, if they want to have the coverage, they can get some of it. They can get this is specified disease. It's like a critical illness policy, cancer protection, and the accident plan. The only one that we went through they cannot get is the hospital plan. And there's also a disability plan that is offered to people through a group. So some plans they can get on their own, and kind of to get our best benefit menu is through a company. And here are the other products that we do have through a company. So short-term disability, we're in California where fortunately we do have state disability that's offered if someone is disabled, probably because it's so expensive to live here. Not all states have state disability. So ours still goes about maybe 50 to 55%. That helps people, with their income about that percentage. So that's still only like 50% of your bills, right? So a lot of people, if they know that we have a short-term disability to go on top of state, that is a huge benefit in California because it's almost impossible to pay your bills with 50% of your income. So again, through a company is where you get our full suite of products. And we do have a vision plan, and these all work the same where we pay people, right? So we pay a person for getting their annual eye exam. We pay for, a certain amount for lenses. And then if there's any other, vision impairments that come with it, we have plans that cover that. So these are really easy, these are things that are already offered usually through companies. So it's an even easier conversation of, hey, do you know about our dental or vision plan that can help enhance what you have? So our dental plan works the same where we pay the person. And because dental coverage is often kind of insufficient. I don't know how your personal dental plan might be, but most people complain about their dental plan because they have so much out of pocket. So that's why ours is kind of a natural need. And then life insurance is offered through groups as well. So we have ultimately there's actually about 8 different plans that could be offered. We try not to offer all of them every time. We try and kind of customize it to the company, but through a group they do have access to basically 8 different plans. All right, and here's a little. That's just me and Missy. Missy is a wonderful back end with implementation and so forth. So for questions, you can always go there. And I can now I'm probably going to how to kind of market to groups as opposed to individuals, but wanted to stop for a second. Do we have any other questions?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We have a question from Manny Rosillo. Sorry, everyone, I'm sick. I'm just getting rid of this little flu here. So he's asking, are there any age limits to qualify for short-term disability?
Yeah, and there are age limits on all the plans. And that one in California, I believe the age limit is 64. So most of our plans in California, the age limit is 64 or 65.
Thank you so much. That was the only question so far.
And Tony, maybe you can touch on the process of getting appointed or contracted to sell Aflac.
Yeah, so if someone has their life and health license, then it's an extremely easy process. Then I would point you directly to Missy. Pulled it. Yep. I would reach out directly to Missy, and her email and phone number is there. You can always reach out to me, but basically you would, if you're already life and health licensed, then Aflac just needs to give you your writing number by you completing, the appointing paperwork. And they do have, certain like continuing education classes that you might need to make sure you're up to date with. But if someone's life and health licensed, it's, I think it's often been done within, 2 weeks where they actually get a writing number if you're already life and health licensed. If not, then, David, do you want me to go into that at all? If they don't have a life and health license, or if they already have one?
Most of our agents have it, right? And to also add some additional information, we're happy, right? And we can help to facilitate. And I know one of the question is the contact information. So you can reach out to our contracting department and we'll help to facilitate to get you in the right person, to either Missy or Tony, to get the process started. I know a few of you've already done it and gone through the process, but we're happy to help with that process as well.
Great.
And then Christine was asking, well, I thank you for sharing your contact information. And Missy's, she's asking, can you provide your contact information, which is there? And she's asking, is this the contact information for California?
Yeah, I mean, we're in California. There's a lot of, California Aflac offices. But for, this relationship, these would be your direct contacts, because I'm based out of the LA Aflac region.
Okay, perfect. So last chance, take a screenshot of Tony and Missy's contact information there, or as David mentioned, you can reach out to our contracting department to get any of this information as well.
Okay. And we still have about 10 minutes, or are we winding down?
We do have about 10 minutes. It's scheduled to be ending at 12.
Okay. Then I'm going to kind of end with just as far as marketing to groups as opposed to individuals. I've done both. And again, big picture, if you sell a business owner or decision maker, you now have access to, say 20 employees year over year, as opposed to selling to an individual and having that one person, and then, hopefully referrals. But the selling to a business owner is kind of a game changer. And I'll bring up, so then we'd be talking about pain points, right? If you go into pain points of an individual versus a business owner, it's a little different. Attraction and retention, right, are forefront for a business owner. But what else do you think could be a pain point for a business owner? And is it okay if I open it up to people to kind of see if they want to think out loud with me on this, kind of
definitely
interactive? So if we could kind of throw it open to everybody, what might be some pain points for a business owner as opposed to an individual? If anyone wants to try and chime in on that.
Yeah, go ahead and write on the chat box or through the Q&A.
I do see a chat here. So I'll give a few seconds if anyone wants to chime in on that, as far as what would be a pain point for a business owner as opposed to an individual. But here is, I'll share some of the things that I think are very relevant to a business owner, and as far as pain points. So I do have something that I use a lot. I don't use a lot of handouts. I'll just show this for anyone who's watching, but it's an article, and it says that 2/3 of Americans would struggle to cover a $1,000 crisis. So if a business owner has 20 employees, say, and 2/3 of them could not handle a $1,000 crisis, that means that most of their staff, if someone had a broken leg, if they had an illness, that most of their employees would not be able to cover it. Which means, what would they do? Well, people typically in that situation either borrow from family, maybe try and get a second job, or they might ask for a paycheck advance. So this is actually quite common. You might not know how common it is, but if most people, 2/3, do not have $1,000 in their bank of savings in case something happens, and if the average cost of a broken leg is $4,000 out of pocket, even with health insurance, then you're looking at a very basic problem. And that problem is that the employees are not self-sufficient. The employees, if and when something happens, if you take the stats of 1 out of 8 people have an injury that needs medical attention, if you just combine basic stats, then you're looking at a very simple problem. And fortunately, there's a very simple solution, right? They can offer a plan that would pay the employee cash, and then they would not have to be susceptible to being asked if they give out a paycheck advance. That's a hard spot for an owner. If they're asked from one employee, right? Hey, I'm having a bind. Can I have an advance on my paycheck? Maybe they do it one time, but if that gets around, that's going to be hard, to deal with the next time it comes around. So this is I don't use a lot of articles, but I usually carry this one around with me, because when people see stuff and they already kind of know it's true. Most people, if they think about it, they realize, yeah, a lot of people probably don't have a lot of money in savings. Well, what are you going to do if and when someone has an injury or an illness? Instead of waiting until that time happens, you could be proactive. And the best part about that is part of, when we do an open enrollment, we can communicate to the employees to say, your employer is, thinks ahead, and he's gone out of his way to provide something for you. If something happens, right, we don't want you to be one of these people. Then if someone does have an event later and they didn't opt into Aflac, the person comes to the employer, for example, and asks for a paycheck advance. You're like, oh, you took advantage of the Aflac, right? Because we offered it. That's why we offered it. So now the employer has a safeguard against a very common problem. So I hope that makes sense. That's just a really simple but very common pain point that most people do not have over $1,000. So what are they going to do if they have an out of pocket that's over $1,000? And again, as far as marketing to businesses, what I like to use primarily is actually letters of recommendation. So I'm just showing you one for an example, but a letter of recommendation can get you in the door in times when you normally wouldn't be able to get into the door. They're one page, they're color, and they're old fashioned. And I had someone recommend that I try that a number of years ago, and it worked, and I went nuts over it. And I found that, if I show a letter of recommendation, their walls go down a little bit. It's something for them to hold. Instead of being a generic flyer or pamphlet, they'll usually throw those away. They'd actually have to either throw it away or read it. So this has been pretty effective. And, if people want to ask more about how to leverage those, it's a really good way to get in the door. Because again, marketing to a business owner can be, I think, much more fruitful than marketing to an employee. Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how Aflac is such a great brand and a lot of people are familiar with it, but they're not so familiar with what it does. But once you get educated a little bit, especially like I'm trying to put myself as a business owner, once you hear what it does and how it can help employees and there's no cost, it's a no-brainer. So it's like
it is a no-brainer.
It just takes a little bit of information and education, and it tells itself, I would think, right?
It does. It does when you get to the meeting. Mm-hmm. And that's why it's, right now there's about probably less than 10% penetration in Los Angeles. Meaning that less than 10% of companies in LA, in Southern California, do not have, or less than 10% of companies have Aflac. So about 90% of companies that you'll run into do not have it. And that's why it's kind of a huge opportunity. And not a lot of people, if some people aren't cut out for it, but I encourage you, try it and try and get cut out for it, because there's a huge opportunity where so many companies are going to get Aflac in the next 3 years. Feel free to look into, stats on Supplemental. But because what used to be a nicety, they used to call it kind of a nicety to offer Aflac, it's becoming more of a necessity. And that's not my verbiage. That's a guy named Jeff Sepisi, who's kind of an Aflac legend. But the idea is it's becoming more and more essential. And the more that, HR and owners look into ways to navigate healthcare reform, they are realizing that it's a very simple and free way to help their benefit package. So try and wrap your head around marketing to business owners and HR instead of just employees, because there is a a huge open window, I would say in the next 3 years, for people to capitalize on the open market for Aflac in businesses. And once you're in, I mean, then you have an open enrollment annual review with all the employees as opposed to just, one person. So I hope that makes sense. And I think I'll wrap up.
We have a
with
couple
that,
questions. One from Gus Medina. He's asking, can someone from Aflac come with us to an appointment for assistance?
No. Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, we have.
I was gonna give you one of these.
Wah, wah, wah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to reach out as far as how to, if that caught your attention at all about marketing to businesses and the very simple pain points that are right there for business owners, contact us. It's a pretty fun thing. You do need to have some grind to get through the basic idea that people don't know what we do. But that plays into your favor once you have the meeting. Once you have a meeting, it's favorable to you that they know the duck, but they don't know what it is. Because now they're kind of curious. They'll actually be they'll be curious about what it does. So that will play in your favor once you do get the meeting.
There's another question.
Yeah.
Once appointed, we will be given access to marketing materials, brochure, or literature, and also how to get a quotes. That's how he.
Yeah, totally. I mean, once you're appointed, then you have access to. You'll have kind of a direct trainer, and then you can have access to order brochures if you want. Aflac gives you brochures for free. Okay. They like the free thing. Yeah.
So anyone that's interested getting appointed or being contracted with Aflac, they can write an email to contracting@iprosteam.com. I will go ahead and type it in the chat as well. If there are any other questions or anything else you want to touch on before we wrap up this session?
Nothing on my side.
Just this is David. A final comment or question, Tony, on for the business owners. Does it qualify for pre-tax dollars through Section 125, or does not?
Thank you, David. Yes. So that is another perk for the business owner and the employee, right? So it is pre-taxed. Most of our plans, life insurance and disability, are always after tax, but our other programs are under Section 125. So yes, they are pre-tax and they actually save the company money. So I'm glad you said that. Not only is it free to the company, but it does save the company money by pre-taxing those plans. And then at the same time, the employee gets an extra savings because, pre-tax dollars to an employee it's like usually you save about 25%. So yes, they are pre-tax. So it's free and you can save money. It's not a common thing for business owners regarding health coverage.
Which is a huge benefit, right? Not only like you described to the business, but also to the employee, because most employees do not realize that during pre-tax dollars, right? And just real quickly, if someone makes $100 and their taxes are $20, right? I mean, benefits are $20. They're taxed not on the $100, but taxed on the $80 versus, because the benefits are pre-tax dollars are taken out, so you're not being taxed on that. So most employees may not even be aware of it, and then particularly what you described, right, an upside to both employee and to the businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big savings. People just don't know about it. That's the problem. They just do not know what it is or how it works.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time, Tony. If there's any other questions, so we can end the session. Thank you so much, David, for the introduction. Thank you, everyone who participated today. Again, I typed in the contracting email, so if you're interested in selling Aflac products, please go ahead and send us an email. Any last questions?
No. Thank you again, Tony. Really appreciate it. A great informative presentation. And thank you to all of our agents who participated today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys. This is great. This studio is awesome, by the way. I'll probably just hang out here for a little bit.
Have a good day, everyone.